Hello, everybody. This is Lori Smith here on Spreaker, and glad to be here. Just wanted to talk tonight a little bit. It's just me chatting, and just thought I'd do a quick show. I was sitting around here tonight and posting some things on Facebook and whatnot, and thinking about all these kids out here, especially these teenagers and young kids out here who are who really don't have a chance. And then there's a whole bit of society that says, a whole piece of society that says, oh well, get over it. Yeah, pick yourself up, you know, shake yourself off and get over it and excel and be as we. And it's like I feel sometimes it just makes me angry. I feel like telling people, how about you come down to my level and you be as me, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't wish, this kind of garbage on anybody, of growing up abused and watching so much garbage and so much suffering and so much hatred, and then having to pick myself up and sort of slide into what most people call normal society, right? It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. I've managed to pull it off because for some reason I was able to, and I've been able to play the chameleon, just change my spots wherever I'm at. But the thing is originally this song that was playing there at the beginning, "Fragments of a Broken Dream" by the Deliverance. It's awesome, and that's just kind of you know reminds me of I'll never forget being young. I'll never forget what happened to me as a child. And I'll never forget what happened to my friends and what happened to people that I knew and cared about and loved, and you know the ridiculousness of it all. And then there's whole groups of society that sit there and say, "Oh well, just deal with it, get over it." It's like, well, no, the whole issue is it's not really, it's doable on one sense, and that's only in the sense that if you can separate yourself from it. Um, a lot of people say you have to embrace it, but you know, I don't see how that happens. I don't see how embracing that stuff actually makes it work. For me, I have to separate myself from it in order to keep going as an adult, as an older adult, right? I mean, I'm getting kind of, towards the back, the later end of my life, you know what I mean? And it's like, uh, I sit here and I think, yeah, no, the only way I've been able to really manage is to separate myself from it because it's part of me. It's always going to be part of me. Anger and rage and mainly um, a feeling of not belonging, and I think that's what a lot of throwaway kids who are thrown out of their homes or just thrown onto the street or just kicked out, where do they belong? Who do they belong with? And it's like, I mean, I left my teenage years behind many years ago and left my friends behind. I wanted to live, and I knew that if I stuck around with many of my really good friends, I would just continue to spiral into heavy drug use, and I wouldn't make it. And so, sadly enough, I had to move on. But that part of me is still there. That part of me will always be there. And that part of me is what society doesn't like. Still, even today. I mean, that's the part of survivors of abuse and survivors and kids who are thrown out on the street, abused in whatever way, neglected or just thrown out. That's the part that society doesn't like, you know. And it's like, well, that's wrong. To be rejected by your own, family or whoever was looking after you, and then be rejected by a society that says, you still don't fit in. And that's the core. I mean, that's really the core issue. Is that kids are when kids are abused like that and mistreated and treated like garbage, and many times thrown out on the streets and stuff. Where do they belong? You got families that say, no, you don't belong here. Out you go, kick, for whatever reason, kicking kids out on the street. And then you got a society that says, no, you don't belong to us either. And I think that's people struggle with that. Many people struggle with that their whole lives. I know I do, because I have to try to fit into a society that says that doesn't acknowledge me. you know. I have to fit into a world that doesn't acknowledge me, that doesn't want to know the pain, that doesn't want to know me, you know. And it's a hard road. It really is. I know a lot of people end up taking their lives. I contemplated it for many, many years. And you know, so many young people do end up taking their lives because they don't know where they fit in. They don't feel like they even fit in on this planet. You know, that's why I was just like, you know, I don't even belong here. I don't belong anywhere. You know, and that's really a sad, sad place to be. It's hard, and I always give people a lot of credit. You know, survivors who've come through this garbage and find their place. You know, and find and really make peace with it and say, you know what, I've found it. I know I'm doing a lot better than I ever have been. You know, as far as that goes. In this last, especially 3 years, I'd say. You know, for sure. Even 4 years, you know, we'll even go back 5 years. But that's about it, because my healing journey started 5 years ago, coming up here May 22nd. But, you know, I just was thinking about these kids out here tonight. You know, so many of them will not have, you know, a good start. And that's why I work so hard to, you know, along with everybody else out here who's making a lot of noise, trying to promote education and awareness, you know, regarding child abuse and child abuse prevention, and looking out for teens that are at risk, you know, because who else is going to do it? We have a whole society saying, "Oh well, just get over it," and a whole society saying, "Oh well, you know, it's just the way it goes, and too bad that's your lumps in life. Just take them and move on, carry on." And it's like, you know, there's a whole group of us survivors screaming out, you know, saying, "No, this is incredibly wrong." And as long as we keep continuing, and I've always, I mean, everybody talks about it, you know, abuse and garbage being pushed under the carpet, you know, survivors just getting pushed under the carpet, right? Kids getting pushed under the carpet, you know, it's unacceptable to me. It's completely unacceptable, and you know, it never should have been like this. People, you know, people would try to maybe figure out where I'm coming from and say, well, why can't you just get over it? You know what I mean? It's because it's who I am, you know. Like when you're abused for your whole life, you can't really change that. You can't change who you are. They created this, and that it's like people say, well, you're not really the whole, you know, total sum of all of your experiences, but that's not true. Because a child who's brought up in a loving, caring, you know, environment where people care about them and teach them and bring them up properly and train them and help them to gain the skills they're going to need to get by in this life, and a real, you know, tight family unit. Sometimes kids will still go astray, but they usually come back, you know, usually, not all, but the majority, I would say. And the majority don't fall away from the family. You know, I've met and known some tight knit families. No, none. My family wasn't, but you know, I've met a few, right, that were pretty tight knit, and everybody loved each other and they got along quite well. And even though they had their own share of problems, you know, they knew that their parents loved them. They knew that they were accepted, that the family loved them, and that, you know, there was that stability of knowing that, wow, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, my parents love me, my siblings, we all get along pretty good, we love each other. That's great, you know? But that's not reality for me, and that wasn't reality. That's not reality for a lot of these kids out here, you know, today, you know. And it's sad. It's really sad, because I would like to know what it would be like, you know, to have your parents care about you and love you and take care of you and treat you right. I'll never know what that's like, you know. And I know so many kids won't, you know. And this is not a joke, you know. It's like people see me as a person who's, you know, just this average, little bit older than middle-aged woman who's doing quite well in life, you know, kind of struggling, but just getting by. They wouldn't have a clue what kind of an existence I had as a child, or what kind of an existence I had as a young teen. You know, they wouldn't know unless they knew me, like knew me back then. So I've done really well to be able to get where I am today, you know, especially having two of my own brothers kill themselves, and one of my brothers was murdered, and, you know, I was going to kill the person who murdered my brother, and, you know, it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, you know, it's just insane. And one of my sisters is dead from cancer, and another. I've got two siblings left that I don't talk to because we're all so toxic with each other. We can't be in the same room. So, it's a harsh situation. So there's no family. But it's like, I guess, I don't know what it would be like to be adopted, or to grow up in a foster care system. You know what I mean? Because I had a real family. It's just that it wasn't a real family. It was just a war. It was a battlefield. But at least I can say, well, yeah, okay, I know who my real family is. So it's got to be a whole different ballgame for people out there who end up in foster care and don't even know who their real family ever was. It's got to be tough. I knew foster care kids that went through foster care and into the foster care system. But I myself remained in the home. But that's the issue. Was it better? I don't know. Would I have found a better foster parent out there that, if the courts would have removed us or removed me, they left us in the home, right? So, did I want to be removed from my home? No. What I wanted was my parents to accept me and to love me and care about me. I fought for that. Like, I literally would tell my parents, you need to care about me. And they would be like, we hate you. Not together, they wouldn't say it, but my mom would be like, no, I hate you. I can't care about you. I hate you. Like, get the hell out of my face. My mom was a hugely abusive woman towards me, and growing up, and my dad was pretty well just ignore me unless he was going to hit me. So, that was growing up for me. And so it's hard to then later on change your perspective on life. It's like, kids who are throwaway kids or just not wanted or abused and, not looked after properly, later on have to deal with this stuff and deal with the really with the lack of knowledge and inability to, to find the proper skills to get by in this life, because this life is tough and everybody knows it. And I think, well, okay, I've read stuff, especially in certain survivor books and whatnot and stuff online, that they say, well, if you've survived abuse, well, then you've made it, because if you can survive that, you can survive anything. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess so. But the issue is it's good to have some of these skills that are necessary to get by as an adult. As a teen, my coping skills were just getting high. That was my main goal. That was what I wanted to do, because I wanted to escape, just to get away and escape. And I also did drugs because I was kind of hoping that, eventually one day they would take me out. It's harsh, It's really, I mean, how do you cope as an adult? It's like, yeah, okay, I go by, certain days are fine. Certain things are okay, but those memories are always there. People say, well, why? Well, because every day is sort of the same experience that you would experience as a child. I have to get up in the morning. I have to get my breakfast. I have to get ready for work. I have to get ready like you're getting ready for school. You still have to face yourself in the mirror. You still have to face your own abilities, And if you were made to feel lesser than as a child, or if you were made to feel worthless as a child, unwanted, not wanted, then it's hard to lose that as an adult. It's a sort of a steady thing for me to have to go through and say, no, we're not going back there. I am worth it. And that's what I think a lot of these throwaway kids out here, like or adults who were throwaway children who were just thrown out in the street. It's hard to feel that, okay, I do belong. I do have self-worth, Do I really matter to myself? Even if nobody else gives a two beans about me, do I care about myself? That's the issue, And for me, I'm really spiritual, so I mean, I know, I believe truly that God loves everybody, loves us all. But that's another thing. I'm talking about just the realities of being abused, And it's hard. It's really, really hard, because the minute rejection comes up in any relationship, or even a job situation or whatever, you're constantly battling this. Am I good enough? I wasn't good enough to my parent. My parents didn't think I was good enough. My mother, I mean, I was just a rape child to her, right? Like, she didn't even care that my brother raped me, you know what I mean? Like, I was just a rape child who was raped, like, she didn't care. She was my main abuser, bashing my head in all the time. And, I was worthless to her. And she made sure I knew that, right? And my dad, same thing, worthless to him. All of his kids were worthless to him. He really didn't care about any of his children. And, you know, that's how I grew up. So I spent my whole life like that. So then I had to realize, okay, no, I am worth something. I do belong here, and I have to truly believe that, right? And I sit there and I think, yeah, but, you know, like, why do I have such a hard time? Why do I have a hard time with this? And it's and as a survivor of abuse, I mean, I'm always looking for this information. Like, wow, like what is it? What is it going to take? Things can't go right all the time. I'm going to have to face rejection at some time, at some point, right? And we all do, right? It's part of life. But when you're coming from behind the eight ball, it's a little tough. So I think, for these kids out here who are on the street, so many times people just look at them and say, oh, look at those thugs, they should go home. It's like, well, would you want to go home if you were getting your head bashed in? Would you want to go home if your life was being threatened? Would you want to go home if you thought, yeah, if you figure, well, tonight's the night, so and so's going to come in my room and force me to have sex with him? Would you want to go home with that kind of stuff going on? Not necessarily. Some of these kids are on the run, and a lot of them are, and then there's other children just thrown out, tossed out. I knew lots of kids that were thrown out of their house. I was. And, it's like, good riddance, don't come back. You go missing, nobody's going to call. Like, nobody's going to report it until the school contacts the parents. The parents say, well, I don't know where they are. Yeah, it's because my mom didn't want me in the first place, so she didn't care. She didn't care if social services took me away. She didn't care. No. So that's the reality, that so many people don't realize, like, that there's so many people out here who go through this, so many survivors of abuse, and neglect, that people don't even realize that kids are going through this stuff. They just think everybody just has this happy life, like growing up. Oh, children, yeah. I mean, I had fun as a kid too, right? I mean, I used to have fun with my friends. I had fun making mud pies in the front yard. I just didn't have fun, when I went back in the house and got a beating, or, got slapped around or got punched because I was trying to help protect my mother from my dad. I mean, I used to play too, right? I mean, I can remember the good stuff too. I can remember good times too. But the issue is the damage is done, right? The physical damage, the emotional damage, the psychological damage is done. And you can't get around that. Like when my neck hurts, I know why my neck hurts. It's a little bit sad, to have to be walking around going, geez, my neck hurts. That's probably because my dad threw me into the wall and a couple of times and actually damaged my neck. And, oh, my hip hurts. Yeah, that could be because my dad yanked my hip out of place. Then my brother raped me. Yeah, that's great. And, I got, I mean, what are you supposed to do with this stuff? It's like, oh, my back hurts and my ribs hurt. Well, that's because my mom beat the shit out of me on a regular basis. Yeah. These are all little lovely reminders, Oh, I don't have any children. Oh, that would be because my brother raped me when I was 8 years old. Thank you so much, So this is the shit that I got, excuse my language, that I have to deal with on a regular basis, and I'm not sitting here having a pity party. What I'm saying is that a lot of people in this world of ours like to walk around and just blow survivors off. Oh, well, can't they just get over it? I don't know. Can you get over that? Like, no, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Because the damage is done, like I'm saying. It's only easy if you can live in denial. Right? Which I can't do. Because I sort of, as a child, the only way I could stay sane in that environment being abused was to keep track. I had to keep track of where people were, who was doing what, because I needed to be safe. And for me to be safe, I couldn't just zone out. I needed to be aware of who was in what room, because if my mom and dad were in the same room, there was going to be shit going on. Had to get out of there, And then when I got older, it was more like, well, let's keep an eye on and make sure that my mom's okay, because then I would have to step in, and then I would get a beating or get slapped across the room or whatever. But I used to stick up for my mom. She was my main abuser, but I used to try to help her out. But she never tried to help me out, right? But I couldn't see not helping her out. That's where, I guess, what's in your heart, I mean, they couldn't turn me into them, right? They tried. They couldn't do it, you know. Like that's the one thing, I guess, that I feel that is a gift, really, is the fact that they could not destroy they couldn't destroy my heart. They couldn't destroy me, right? They tried. And then I tried to destroy myself, but they couldn't do it because I won, I won this battle. But so many young people out there won't, they'll give up, or they'll overdose, or they'll kill themselves or whatever, or they'll just end up in prison because they just take it out on somebody else, and this is a real shame, it's just so important that people not forget, that a lot of these people, these young kids out here in the world today, these young people that they see on the streets, are not out there by choice. And as adults, you see a lot of people having a hard time. You see a lot of homeless adults and a lot of people, really struggling in life and whatnot. And you have to kind of wonder, they probably weren't necessarily in the best of situations, or you haven't had the best life as a child or as a teenager, because it's hard, right? It's incredibly hard to know, to know how to deal with things, how to take care of things, especially when you have to learn it, and really you are learning it kind of as you go on your own, without any real help from anybody, and it's tough, So yeah, don't forget these kids out here, don't forget these teenagers and stuff out here, who may look like young punks, but they are all, more than likely, a lot of them, if not 99% of them, on the street because of their home life, Because I know for myself, like, the streets, I was contemplating the streets, and I'd always go home, but I was contemplating the streets, and I thought, do I want to end up on the street? Well, it's better that my mom beats me than somebody else, or it's better that my brother raped me than somebody else. See, that's pretty pathetic, but that's the truth of it, right? Because a lot of these kids will go home and have to deal with a gun in their face, or be beaten on and raped or sexually abused by somebody in their family, or just ignored, screamed at, whatever. A lot of these kids would prefer the street to that. And so, I knew kids who were on the street too, and not a good lifestyle. Not a good lifestyle at all. And I see these kids out here today, and I sit there and I just pray for them, because a lot of them won't make it. And they won't find whatever it is, that fight within them to say, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm going to make it. And that's where I think that's the difference between maybe some of us survivors and some people that give up. They just lose that fight. Or they don't have it, right? One or the other. Like, 2 of my brothers killed themselves. They just never had it. But, there's other people that are like, no, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stick it out because there has to be a better day, There has to be something better, even if it's not for another 2 or 3 years down the road. Because for me, that's pretty well what it's been, because my whole childhood was just garbage, and it was just horrible. And I thought, somewhere down the road it has to be better, And then I would contemplate suicide. I contemplated suicide my whole life until the age of 42. And, now, do I still contemplate suicide? It crosses my mind every day. Yeah. But the issue is that I know now that my will to live is so much stronger than my will to take my life, right? Because I know I'm going at some point anyway, right? So I'm like, no, I got to stay here, and I got to help. I got to try to help people. I got to try to, do something to make something good come out of this garbage, right? Because this should have never happened. Child abuse should never, ever happen. Never. There's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. It should never, ever happen. And so it's like I sit there and I think, nah, I have nothing better to do with my time, because I've only got so many years left, than to be as vocal and as public and as out there as I can possibly be to help make a difference, to raise awareness and education, to wake people up to the reality of child abuse, right? And what it does to people in my life, may be an example for other people, right? I had some help along the way. I had some friends whose parents were really decent to me, whereas maybe some other kids don't get that opportunity. I mean, I had people who did talk to me and say the right things. You know what I mean? Because 10, 15 years later, it made all the difference, right? At the time, it didn't seem to make any difference, but 10 or 15 years later, what they told me really made a huge difference, right? And I still remember today. I'll never forget the kindness of those people, when I was like 14, 13, 12, and wishing that I was dead, and wanting to be dead, and hoping that I would be dead, you know, and hoping that my mother would kill me. I was like, okay, maybe I'll go home tonight, maybe she'll bash my head in, maybe I'll just die. That was just something I just always thought about, because I was told that I should just die. I was told that I deserved to die. I was told that I should have never been born. It was not that was not wanted, and I should have been born. I was a rape child, right? And so, when you grow up hearing that your whole life, I mean, it just starts to stick with you. You start to think, yeah, maybe that's true. So I had some people tell me the right things at the right time that I didn't realize would help me out until many years later. So be that for somebody else. You have a chance to help a child, or you have a chance to help a young person, a teenager who seems like they're just really struggling. Those words that you say, make sure they're the right ones. Make sure they stick. Make sure they understand. They are worth it. And they do deserve to be here. And they do deserve to love themselves and love other people and keep that love alive in their hearts, right? Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. I'm just going to play the rest of this song here. This is a great tune. This is Fragments of a Broken Dream, The Deliverance.